All right, guys. So welcome to Troy Francis' show, and thank you.
Hey guys, what an intro. Troy Francis, welcome to the show and welcome to the new channel. So we are going to be looking into the controversial but very pressing issue of whether it is women's deluded entitlement that is ruining the modern dating scene. Okay. Before we do that, however, I would like to just introduce myself and sort of talk about what we're doing with this new channel. You may know me from I have another YouTube channel that I post content on. I'm on social media. Basically, I'm a dating coach. Okay, so I have been working as a dating coach for the past decade, and predominantly what that's meant is I have been teaching men about the ways and means of the modern dating environment. Okay, we'll get into the background of that in a moment, but I've been doing that for the last 10 years, and what that has meant has been that I have spent a lot of time coaching thousands of dudes all over the world, both online and in person, and actually spending time with them, listening to their concerns, and seeing what's going on out there in modern dating. And I'm not just talking about the Anglosphere. I'm not just talking about the UK. I'm in London now. I'm not just talking about the UK. Not just talking about America. We're not just talking about Miami. We're talking about the global dating marketplace, okay? And so I have bang up to date intel in terms of what's actually happening out there and what guys are struggling with and what guys are looking for, okay, in terms of the women that they're dealing with. So I'm in a unique position to be able to create content that can speak to men, because obviously the terrain out there is very treacherous at the moment. We're going to go into that in a moment. But also to women as well. And fundamentally, I believe that the only way that we're going to solve modern dating, and modern dating kind of needs to be solved, to be honest, because it's pretty rough out there, as I've said. The only way that we're going to solve it is through dialogue, okay, and through looking at the problem, diagnosing what the hell is going on, and then trying to figure out, okay, so what are some constructive ways in which, we might build some bridges here. We might make this work a little bit more between, the two genders, which is exactly why I've called this stream, I've mentioned delusional women in the title for this first stream, to be completely non-partisan. So yeah, dating is screwed, guys. It's just incredibly hard out there for everybody. The reason that you're able to be a guy like me who teaches guys the art of dating is because it's so difficult, all right? I mean, if it was just easy, I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Because we are now in a position where we have the greatest connectivity, the greatest ability to communicate with one another that we've ever had in the entire history of the planet, okay? The internet, social media, dating apps, okay? All of these things are completely unheard of 10, 15, 20 years ago. 10, 15, 20 years ago, the environment that people were meeting and getting together and mating and dating and having sex and relationships and all the rest of it, completely unrecognizable. And the other thing about me is that I'm getting on a bit, right? I'm in my late 40s. I'm nearly going to hit the big half century in not too distant future. Okay. Now, you might think, well, what's this boomer got to tell me about modern dating? Well, as I said, I mean, the reality is we're traveling a lot. We're going out there. We're actually coaching guys in this stuff and seeing what's happening out there on the ground. So in many ways, I've got a greater insight into this than probably most other dudes, even dudes of half my age. But the other thing that's important about this is that I have seen firsthand the way that the dating marketplace has changed since the onset of the internet. So I'm able to speak to that in a very cogent and coherent way and bring some kind of insight to that, which perhaps some other people who are creating content around this aren't able to because they're so used to us all being online, okay? I've seen it change. And for example, as I said, I'm in London. We're sitting in London now. I've seen it change significantly in London over the last 15 years. And it's only down to the onset of the dating apps, the reason that that's happened, okay? So we're going to be getting into all of this stuff on the channel, okay? So I want to just... And by the way, guys, please do subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Okay, subscribe to this channel because we're going to be doing lives over here, okay? And we're going to be doing regular lives and really delving into this stuff. And we're also going to be going out into the community as well to go and talk to women and also maybe some guys and find out their opinions on this stuff and what they feel about what's actually happening here, okay? So do subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. If you would, be so kind as to do so, please put a comment into the comment section. Let's get this thing built up. And obviously, give me a like for the video. But in terms of the chat, obviously, any questions you've got, anything you want me to cover, stick it in the chat and we will get to it as this goes on. Okay, so how did I get into all of this in the first place? Well, basically, I'm going to do a little bit of a Batman story now, go back to the old days and so on, because I think it's important just to introduce myself for those people who don't know. What was my background? I was a pretty socially inept kind of guy. I was very introverted. I was very shy. I was quite a bookish, nerdy kind of dude. I wasn't a particularly sort of, physical kind of dude. I wasn't really into sports or any of that kind of stuff. And also, I was, you talk about introversion. I mean, actually, I kind of liked my own company, right? So I spent a lot of time on my own and kind of enjoying that, right? And the problem with that is that's great if you want to be like a writer or you want to be an academic or you want to get into some kind of professional field. It's absolutely terrible if you want to date girls, okay? So my background, school, no action really in terms of dating. And then what happened was I went to university in Manchester in the north of England and I started to party a lot. I started to, have a few drinks. I started to maybe do some other naughty things. The club scene was very big in those days. So I'd go out and get into that whole house music rave scene. And my persona kind of changed overnight, okay? So I went from being, as I said, this quite shy, quite sort of reserved, quite sort of self-deprecating guy. And I became much more spiky as a personality, all right? I became much more kind of a bit of a jerk, really, I became more arrogant. I mean, not in a hugely negative way, but I became a little bit more just like convinced of myself, if you like, and sort of more combative a little bit and more willing to just, tell people what I thought. And I assumed that was going to lead to me being ostracized, and people would hate me and whatever. But I thought, let's see, let the chips fall where they may. What actually happened was that women in particular, surprisingly, and it did surprise me at the time, were really drawn to my new persona, okay? And this wasn't a fake persona. This wasn't something I was doing just for, for fun. This was just basically because I was partying a lot. I was, as I say, ingesting these different substances. It kind of brought out this other side to me. And what that taught me, because then I got, my first girlfriend, or rather, I met this girl in the club. We got together. We were together for about something like 6 months or something like that. She was really, really cute. She was a very, very attractive woman. Didn't last very long because I had no clue what I was doing at all in terms of how to run a relationship or indeed about sort of male-female dynamics. I had literally zero idea. But what it did show was that I was able to do that, if you know what I mean. I was able to, I lost my V card and I moved to the other side of the Rubicon, and we broke up. She basically dumped me after 6 months. I think she monkey branched, which is a term we'll be going into later, to somebody else. I think, if I remember rightly, it was a long time ago now. And I was devastated, as dudes often are, because I was, well, not only was she my first, but she was also, you also have that thing at the beginning where you think, well, I managed to do it that one time, but will I ever be able to repeat the same thing again? It's like sales. It's sort of like you're only ever as good as your last sale, okay? You're only ever as good as your last release. And it was kind of like that with the dating stuff, okay? And by the way, this was in the 90s, so this was pre-internet, this was pre-smartphones. Mobile phones were just starting to come in, but you get those like brick type things. So it was pre the smartphone and everything else. And so, I was kind of devastated by that. Really, really upset. She was, as I say, she was very, very pretty. I had been working in this nightclub where I met her, and you know, I mean, she was certainly the you know, other dudes there had really liked her. I mean, the doorman there had really liked her. They were looking, well, how the hell did this guy get with her? You know, what did he do? So that made it kind of worse, right? Because then you're like, oh, I've lost this kind of thing that was really precious, whatever. So yeah, so I spent a few months sort of licking my wounds and trying to get over that. And then I was working in bars in Manchester, in that city, different bars and things. And what I realized was that the status that I had, and look, status, if you're working at a bar, I mean, yeah, you can look at it now and say, well, the status is not that high. But in that social hierarchy, that social environment, being the person who's standing behind the bar, particularly if it's a very cool place, does actually give you some kudos, okay? So I had this kind of artificial status that was given to me by working in those bars. And then I started to meet more women through that. And at that point, it became almost this kind of, it became this quite compulsive thing, you know, where I was sort of like, well, I never want to go back to the former status that I had, which was being this dude who wasn't getting any action at all. I was like, I need to, whatever it takes, I need to keep the party rolling. Okay. And that really then led into, you know, to be honest, to be transparent, a couple of decades worth of me dating, being quite promiscuous, having lots of different relationships, both longer term and shorter term, and probably doing it in a manner that was, you know, you could argue was fairly compulsive. Okay. These days I've calmed down because you get to a certain age and, you know, you want to go home and have a cup of hot chocolate instead. But I've certainly been through the mill with this stuff. And the value of that for you guys and for you ladies and gentlemen watching this is that, again, I've done a lot of field research into this subject matter, you know, and beyond that, I mean, look, I mean, guys want to meet women, you know, guys want to have sex, okay? I mean, we all know that, right? It's not rocket science. But I've always also been very fascinated, just as I said, by the way that human beings interrelate to one another, you know, and what is it that causes, what is it that creates attraction? This is the main thing that guys need to be concerned with, okay? It's like, okay, so she's over there, she looks cute. What is it that she wants? All right, what are the qualities that I can show that are going to make her interested in me? Okay. Fundamentally, we've got a schism now, haven't we, in the dating pool, which is that men are finding it incredibly difficult on the front end, okay? It has been said, and this is, I believe, absolutely true, that women are the gatekeepers of sex, okay? So women are basically the ones who are making the decision about who they're going to sleep with, who's going to get sexual access, okay? All guys really do, whether you've learned everything in the world about game, everything in the world about pickup artistry or whatever, in the end, what you're really doing is you're putting yourself in front of potential mates, right? Girls who may potentially like you. You're putting your best foot forward and you're kind of seeing how they react, okay? And some women really like you. Other women are not interested at all. You know, you could almost do anything and you just wouldn't be their type, and that's absolutely fine. And then you've got this group kind of in the middle who, yeah, she might kind of like the guy, she might not like the guy. And those are the ones where, from the male perspective, where the game is played, if you like, because those are the girls who may possibly come to his way of thinking. She might be persuaded that actually he's a cool guy, that actually he's someone worth spending some time with. But the ones who are in that no category, you know, it's game over. You're not gonna do anything to convince them. Okay. So for guys, it's very much about putting yourself in front of the women and kind of seeing whether they are A, interested in you in any shape or form, and B, whether they are available. All right, because of course she might be married, she might actually have a boyfriend, she might, you know, whatever, she might be in some kind of weird kind of situation that means that she's not able to engage. So you're looking for high interest and availability. That's the guy's side of it. The women's side of it, though, the challenges are different. All right, the challenge is different. From the female side of it, for the most part, women are able to access sex and attract men fairly easily. Okay, Why is that? Well, that's because men, obviously, as we know, much more visually driven than women. Okay, it's a pretty straightforward thing for most men. You know, yeah, she's cute. Okay, I want to get to know her. I want to sleep with her. That's it. All right, we're not. You know, there's no great shades of nuance in this stuff for the most part. With women, it's a bit different, right? With women, there is a larger checklist of things that the guy needs to have before she's going to consider getting intimate with him. Okay, and the question really is, has that become more unrealistic as time has gone on? Have women's expectations become more crazy as time's gone on? And the answer, of course, is absolutely yes, because we see this all the time on podcasts, on shows, when women are interviewed in street interviews, and so on and so forth. The desire for, you know, the so-called high-value man appears to be at an all-time high. Okay, women are not interested, for the most part, in the average guy. Now, therefore, the message to men is always along the lines of, well, look, you've got to level up. You know, you've got to level up, okay? You need to go to the gym. You need to work on your finances, money, muscles, game, frame. You know, you need to work on all of that stuff. And then you will be the one who is selected. You know, you need to get into that top 20%. And look, I mean, I'll be honest. I think that's good advice. I don't have any problem with that. I think all guys should be doing that stuff anyway. But, you know, on the other side, are women, you know, do women need to look at some of these expectations that they have? And do they need to, in some cases, lower them, or at least be a bit more realistic about it? You know? And I think there's a very good argument that they do. But I wanted to have a look at an article on here about modern dating. As I say, any comments you got, any questions, just put them into the chat and we will get to them in time. I'm just going to pull something up here. We'll have a look at this article I saw earlier. But let's have a look at this. Before we do that, though, that's my background anyway. So I got into this stuff. I got into dating, and I became pretty proficient at meeting women. And I was untutored at the point when I was in Manchester. I was untutored. I didn't really. There was no sort of. I didn't have any framework. I hadn't studied the game or anything like this. When I moved back to London in the early 2000s. At that point, the book The Game by Neil Strauss was published. I think it was around 2005 or something like that. And that was the first time that male dating advice had sort of gone mainstream, if you like. Before that, it had always been a little bit, you know, under the counter, a little bit seedy, a little bit sort of, you know, not the kind of thing most people necessarily engage with. But in 2005, when that book came out, it became this very mainstream thing. And a lot of guys read that book, including myself, and started to realize, okay, there's a bit more of a system to this than perhaps we thought. There's a little bit more of a system. And women are attracted to certain things, right? Certain masculine qualities that usually speak to dominance, leadership, the ability to provision, and various other bits and pieces. And if you're able to showcase those things effectively when you're out there and you are engaging with these women that you want to date, right? That's going to increase your opportunities, you know, with her, right? And I never really, a lot of this stuff I was just completely unaware of, because a lot of the stuff is sort of counterintuitive a little bit. Some of the stuff I kind of picked up sort of organically, if you like, but a lot of it I hadn't, and I didn't really know, you know, I didn't really know a lot of this stuff, because a lot of this stuff, it needs to be taught to guys. Okay, guys don't intuitively know this stuff, except for a few who are maybe very fortunate. All right, most guys don't intuitively know this stuff. So I read that book, and then I read, I think it was The Mystery Method, which also talks about dating, you know, techniques for guys in the clubs in LA at the time. And I got onto various sort of forums and message boards, and I started to meet other, you know, dudes who are kind of interested in this stuff. Started to go out in London a lot and to sort of use some of the sort of approaches or the techniques that have been taught. And what happened was that my dating life just exponentially blew up, right? It kind of, it became a very prolific thing, all right? And so my sort of addiction to the dating thing, the sex thing, the compulsion of that kind of really just rocketed throughout my 30s and really a lot of my 40s as well. And again, you know, you could look at that and say, well, is that the best use of time? Possibly not. But as I say, it does mean that I've got a hell of a lot of insight into this stuff because I've spent a lot of time out there in the field doing the research, if you like. Then it was probably around 2010 or so, well, a bit later actually, I started to create content about game and dating, okay? I started to firstly write a journal and then write a blog about the experiences that I was having out there and the kinds of things that I was learning and the kinds of things that I'd noticed. And I, after that, began to write for a men's online magazine at the time, which was called Return of Kings. So that was something that was published by Roosh V, who's quite a famous figure back in the earlier 2000s. He'd written a number of books about dating and game and all this kind of stuff. And actually through that, I met Donovan Sharp, who some of you may know as the guy who runs the Conference of Masculine Excellence in Miami. He's got a big YouTube channel. He's a content creator and so on. So, you know, I met him. He was another writer there. And then it just increased from there. I wrote a couple of books. The books started to sell. People liked my perspectives. They liked what I was kind of bringing to the party. I've always tried to be fairly raw and kind of unfiltered about this stuff. And I've tried not to put on too much of a fake facade and kind of give it how it is, tell it how it is. And people like that approach. So the book started to sell and I started to realize, okay, well, this could be something that I could do. You know, I could expend more of my time, right? I could make this a full-time thing. After that, I started doing more on social media, started doing YouTube, etc., etc., etc. Now, what you may know, certainly guys watching this may know, is that over the past few years, I suppose you know the red pill, the manosphere, the men's dating space, whatever you want to call it, men's self-help space exploded and became very, very big over the last few years. You've got people like, as I say, Fresh and Fit, you've got Pearl, you've got various other podcasts, whatever podcasts, etc., etc. Okay, it's become a very, very big thing, and it's something that people are, you know, really, really talking about now a lot online. Okay, and I was kind of, you know, I knew those guys, I was kind of part of that whole thing. And it's been really interesting just to sort of chart the rise of people talking about all of this stuff from the earlier days when I got into it. Okay, and through that time, you know, I've spent, as I say, a lot of time coaching guys, traveling to different countries, working a lot with James Tusk, who's a male dating coach, coaching guys in like Mexico, Colombia, all over Europe, the United States, etc., etc. So it's kind of been an interesting few years, to put it mildly. And as I say, I think one of the cool things actually about the way that the space is now is that people are, you know, it's not just a male conversation anymore, right? It's not just guys talking to guys. Increasingly, women are obviously on these panels. Guys are talking to women are talking to guys, and there's this kind of open dialogue happening, which I mentioned before, which I think overall is a pretty good thing. Whether we are able to solve this is something else, but I think it's good that people are at least doing this stuff. Okay, so I'm all for it, and yeah. So with doing this stream, and with doing content on here, the aim really is to give you that same degree of raw, unfiltered, unflinching honesty with regard to what's happening out there in terms of dating at the moment. What we want to do as we move forward with this is to start doing call-ins, okay? So we want to get guys calling in and talking about their dating problems, but we also want to get women calling in as well and talking about their dating scenarios, what's happening for them. and what they're doing. Okay, I think this is going to be instructive for all of us, right? Because women often are somewhat delusional about what they can achieve in the dating sphere. Okay, they're somewhat delusional about what is realistic, and I say that with love and respect, but I think it's true. And the difficulty is that if you keep going after something that is not really going to make you happy, or you don't really want, then you're pretty screwed. Okay, it's not going to go well for you. And women, as we know, have a relatively short shelf life in order to achieve the things that they want. So it's very important that we look at it from that perspective as well. But equally, I think it's really cool to have a show where you can just talk about what's going on out there, And we're going to be looking at lots of articles. We're going to be looking at TikToks. We're going to be looking at Reddit and all that kind of stuff, and to find out, see some of the crazy stuff that people are doing, the celebrity stuff, all of the really mental things that are happening out there in terms of dating and relationships, because it is like an absolute shit show out there at the moment, really, to be fair. But equally, I also want to report to you from the front line in terms of what's happening out there in various places in London, which is, a hotbed of crazy stuff going on, and also from wherever else that I end up going. So Warsaw in Poland, for example, and various other places. We want to just have this as a space where we can talk about, okay, this is how it actually is, because we want to get to truth. Okay, we want to get to truth about dating. We don't want to make this kind of a sugar-coated thing. We don't want to try to make it like an airy-fairy fantasy land. We want to get to the truth of what's actually happening out there, okay? And to do that, we can use both journalistic sources, but also, data as well, studies, but most importantly of all, actually getting out there and engaging with people and speaking to them and bringing the stories back, okay, and sharing it on here. Please do, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss any following content coming up. Also, my email newsletter is free. There's a link below for that, so you can join up to that as well. And, give the video a like, give me a thumbs up, etc., and make sure that you share and so on and so forth. Subscribe, share, and all of that good stuff. So let's have a look at an article. Right, let's just have a look at this, okay. This article appeared on The Hill. I think it came out... Okay, so this was in February this year. So fairly, well, the beginning of the year, but relatively recent. It was this year anyway. And I wanted to just talk about this because I think this is a really interesting and pretty depressing, actually, overview of how things are going out there. This is perhaps more from the male point of view, but let's have a look. More than 60% of young men are single, nearly twice the rate of unattached young women, signaling a larger breakdown in the social, romantic, and sexual life of the American male. Okay, well, pretty gloomy stuff. Men in their 20s are more likely than women in their 20s to be romantically uninvolved, sexually dormant, friendless, and lonely. They stand at the vanguard of an epidemic of declining marriage, sexuality, and relationships that afflicts all of young America. We're in a crisis of connection, says Niobe Way, a psychology professor and founder of the Project for the Advancement of Our Common Humanity at New York University. That was a mouthful. Disconnection from ourselves and disconnection from each other, and it's getting worse, okay? And that actually is a very, poignant line, isn't it? And not even just in regard to dating. I think disconnection on a social-wide scale is of great concern. I don't want to go off topic too much here, but I mean AI, the way that people are relating, what's going to happen with, you've got AI influencers now, haven't you, taking our influencer jobs. There's all kinds of crazy stuff happening. And the thing about all of the technology, right, in terms of dating, in terms of just the way that we relate as human beings, all of that stuff is only going to increase, okay? None of this is going to slow down. None of this is going anywhere. In fact, if anything, it's getting worse, okay? So we need to look at this stuff and we need to take it seriously. Anyway, disconnection, crisis of disconnection. So yeah, this can have tragic consequences. Guys commit suicide at 4 times the rate of young women. There are mass shootings that happen. And so what's happening here? Because women are obviously seem to be doing better from this account. It says here, scholars say the new era of gender parity has reshaped relationship dynamics, empowering young women, and in many cases, removing young men from the equation. Women don't need to be in long-term relationships. They don't need to be married. They'd rather go to brunch with friends than have a horrible date. It's like Sex in the City fantasy, said Greg Matos, a couple and family psychologist in Los Angeles, who recently penned a viral article called "What's Behind the Rise of Lonely Single Men." So women are kind of... Women don't need men anymore, right? And we've known this for a while, right? And why don't they? Well, because women work, they have jobs, they have their own income, okay? They're highly educated. They may well be educated more than the dudes around them. Their resources are taken care of by the jobs that they get, and also, let's be honest, by the government as well, because there's always going to be a safety net for women out there, right? Much more than there is for men. You know, if she has a child and then she falls on hard times, there's going to be help for her, right? There's going to be opportunities for her. You know, there's going to be some kind of safety net, much more than there is for dudes. Okay, so that's happening. So women just, you know, they don't need men for provisioning in the way that they once did. And so why would she now pick the average kind of chump, right? Why would she now pick this just some random kind of dude who is working in, you know, some store, maybe earning a middling sort of income, an average looking guy, not particularly, you know, not really ticking any of the sort of boxes that a lot of women say they want, you know, the 6 foot tall, six pack, all that kind of stuff. Why would she pick him? Okay, she doesn't need him now. Okay, she just wants to go to brunch. She just wants to have an Instagram friendly life. She just wants to have, you know, she doesn't want to go on these weird, cringy, awkward dates as she sees them. Okay. So, recent years have seen a historic rise of unpartnered Americans, particularly amongst the young. The pandemic made it worse. And this, again, I mean, this kind of depends on what you want, really. We'll get into this more in subsequent shows, but I mean, whether you actually want to get married is another thing. But as of 2022, Pew Research Center found 30% of US adults are neither married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship. Nearly half of all young adults are single, 34% of women, and a whopping 63% of men. Okay, so significantly more men than women are unmarried, all right? And that goes along with the decline in sex. The share of sexually active Americans stands at a 30-year low. So across the board, fewer people are having sex. Around 30% of young men reported in 2019 that they had no sex in the last year, compared to about 20% of young women. So there's a big disparity there. Okay, there's like a 10 percentile point disparity there between men and women. Basically, men are getting it significantly less than women. All right. So what's going on? So who are these women sleeping with? Because the figures don't seem to add up. But guys, it appears, are checking out. Because it says here, only half of single men are actively seeking relationships or even casual dates. That figure is declining. Talks about the pandemic. There's talk about porn. Obviously, that can affect whether people are gonna, their motivation to date, let's say, is going to be affected by that. So if single men outnumber single young women nearly 2 to 1, who are these young women dating? Okay, this is the interesting thing. So it says some of Gen Z identifies as queer, so that's going to bisexual or gay, that's going to take some of them off the market. But then it says young women are also dating and marrying slightly older men, carrying on a tradition that stretches back more than half a century. But this is the really key thing, I think. Heterosexual women are getting more choosy. Women don't want to marry down. Okay, women don't want to marry down to form a long-term relationship with a man with less education and earnings than herself, said Ronald Levant, Professor Emeritus of Psychology at the University of Akron and the author of several books on masculinity. Okay, women are getting more picky. All right, it's come from the man himself. He's an academic. He's a professor on psychology at Akron. He knows what he's on about. Okay, women are getting more picky. This is the problem. Why are they getting more picky? Because they don't have to settle in the same way that they used to. In previous generations, young women entered adulthood in a society that expected them to find a financially stable man. Over the 50s and 60s, that pattern gradually broke down. Today, it's all gone. That's what it says. It's all gone today. Okay, the social fabric that held that together has completely frayed. Okay, it's gone. Today in America, says Levant, women expect more from men. And unfortunately, so many men don't have more to give. All right? And that's the problem, isn't it? Right? We're in a situation now where globally, there are economic problems happening. All right? Super high inflation in the United Kingdom, the United States, and so on, not to mention across the rest of the world as well. There's obviously war and political unrest and all these other things. There's also, and this is going to be an even bigger thing, there's also the spectre of AI, which is going to steal everyone's jobs, including mine, because even online figures now are being replaced with AI. So, it's this kind of triple threat of the economy's bad, there's going to be fewer jobs anyway, guys are just not able to, and women's expectations going higher, so guys are just not able to line up with what women apparently seem to want. And, whenever you talk to them or you see them interviewed on shows or you look at the data, we'll get into that in a moment, we kind of know what women want, right? They want this elite level. They want this top tier. And also, women are tiring of their stereotypical role as a full-time therapist for emotionally distant men. They want a partner who's emotionally open and empathetic, the opposite of the age-old masculine ideal. They just expect more than men. And then it goes on to talk about friendships as well. And what it's saying here is that men are also even finding it difficult to make friendships. Okay, again, we're living in this kind of atomized society, aren't we? Where we're all disconnected. We're all just in our own little bubble. We're all on the smartphone the whole time. We're not really living in reality. We're living in this kind of weird simulacrum of reality that isn't actually real. And I think something that's really interesting, actually, and we're going to get into this in subsequent shows, is OnlyFans and pornography, okay? Because again, obviously that's having an effect, because you can have this sort of like these weird non-real relationships with these online figures, with these OnlyFans girls, with these, porn stars, whatever. And of course, in the case of OnlyFans, you can actually be talking to her online. You're actually interacting with her, okay? And that is further preventing guys, or that's kind of giving guys enough, let's say, satiation, although it's not real satiation, but it's kind of enough of a substitute to prevent them even more from wanting to go out and engage with women and meet women, okay? And the dating apps obviously are shit for women, for most guys, because most guys are in that 80, that bottom 80%, and the women just aren't interested. So it's very, very tough. Social circles are shrinking. Women are better at creating friendship groups and so on and so forth. I mean, it's kind of weird, right? Because I read this kind of stuff and I find it very depressing. Okay, I find it very, dispiriting that this is the state of play out there. I really do. And look, I mean, in my day job, in my career, I've sought to help guys to work on this, to try to find ways to get through this, and this is what we continue to do. All right, it's not easy. Okay, but I also sort of don't identify with it that much, in a way. And I'm saying this from a position of privilege, I suppose, and I am very grateful. But it's kind of like I think being older is the key thing. I think if you're going into this marketplace now and you're a young guy and you're trying to establish yourself, it is very, very tough. Okay, and on top of all of this, that's been mentioned in this article, which we haven't even got to yet, we've also got the whole thing about Me Too, the whole thing about political correctness and the sort of the increased focus on how men and women are meant to relate in public places, and if the guy approaches, is that weird, is that creepy, and all of this kind of stuff. So there's so many things going on that are really preventing guys from going out there and even trying, as it says here, even trying to form meaningful relationships with women, okay? But in saying all of that, you know, then you'll speak to women and you will, you know, you speak to women and women will often say, well, I wish I was being approached more, you know? So I think it's a mistake, and this is something we need to acknowledge. It's a mistake to think, well, women are just, you know, they've got it easy, it's great for them. Because it kind of isn't really. And the other big problem that we've got is that, well, women aren't looking for most men. This is the big thing. So let's have a look at this. So this is a little article. I mean, this has been reported in many different places, but let's have a look at this article here. So this was from Your Tango by Christine Schoenenveld well, this is going back to 2018 actually, but still. Women find 80% of men unattractive, says crazy study. There's a lady here looking at her phone, finding a lot of men unattractive right now in a yellow jumper. Women are often thought of as picky, especially where men are concerned. Some single women are known to have lists of characteristics that their ideal man must possess, like great abs, a sense of humor, a six-figure income, and a nice car. Well, I haven't got a nice car, but I'm ticking the other boxes, so I'm good to go. But women have these lists, okay, in a way that men kind of don't. You know, men are just... A lot of guys, to be honest, will take what they can get. I say it sounds crude, but it's the reality. Dating is a marketplace. Sex is a marketplace, okay? You can only get what your value determines you can get, you can extract from that marketplace. Okay, that's the harsh reality of it. Okay, and most guys, or 80% of guys, let's say, don't have what is necessary to get what they actually want from the dating marketplace. So they're really screwed. But do women, okay? And let's have a look at this. So look at this curve here. Female messaging and male attractiveness. So women are thought of as picky, and they've got all these lists. But then, obviously, at some point, she's going to want to settle down. Probably. Most women want to settle down. Most women, let's be honest, want to settle down. They want to find a partner. They want to find someone that they can build a home with, a family with, and they kind of want to cash out of the game. The problem that women have is that they have this dual mating strategy, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow, but they have this dual mating strategy whereby what they are aroused by, what they're physically, what they're kind of turned on by, is often different, very different, to the guy who's going to be the one who's the great provider, the great family man, the great dad, all of those things, right? She's not necessarily, in many cases, aroused by that stuff, okay? She might need that stuff because at some point you got to cash in your chips. At some point you got to say, okay, fine, let's pick this guy, let's go with him. But she's not necessarily aroused by that guy. And this is a big problem because what women would really like, I believe, is that they want to find everything in the one dude. Okay? They want the guy who is, you know, the Cancun foam party dude with the great abs, the devil-may-care sense of humor, the dark triad characteristics, the kind of the bad boy, if you like. But he's also, at the same time, earning six figures in a very stable job. He's very caring, he's very supportive, he's not going to go off with some other woman randomly and forsake the family or the potential family that they build. He's going to be the rock in the relationship. Okay, that's kind of what they want. They want everything together in the one piece, you know, the one guy. But it's very hard for them to find that because actually most guys are one or the other, right? Most guys are either the kind of the bad boy alpha, Chad, or whatever you want to call it, who probably doesn't really want to settle, or for a lot of the time doesn't want to settle. And then the other guys are the sort of the ones who are more, let's say, beta, you know, who are the providers, who are the dads, who are the ones who are going to be, you know, care for her and be there and be really supportive and all that. And all that stuff's very nice, but she doesn't really want that, or she doesn't find that very sexy. And this is a real problem. This is a real problem. And the reason it's a problem now, or more of a problem now than it was before, is because, as we said, women don't need men in the same way that they once did. So whereas before, the nice dude who was the good provider, the caring, reliable, sensible, whatever guy would be the one who would win her heart. And, well, theoretically, that would all be great, although there's always been problems in marriages, guys, to be honest. But theoretically, that would have been great. Now, because she doesn't need the man for that financial support, and on top of that, we've got all of social media bombarding her with different options, different possibilities, you know, grass is always greener type stuff, then it's no surprise, really, that women are rejecting these guys. Okay, so look at the curve on here. So OkCupid looked at their users and came up with this chart. And you can see the chart. If you look at the grey line, you can see that women rate a whopping 80% of men as worse looking than medium. Worse looking. It's not even... It's so harsh, isn't it? It's not even like, oh yeah, these guys, they're a little bit, you know, they're kind of okay, but they're not my type. It's not even that. It's like, no, they're worse looking. It's pretty harsh. So, you know, and this is a problem. This right here is a big problem in this whole dating equation. However, on the other hand, when it comes to actually making contact, oh shit, when it comes to when it comes to actually making contact with a potential date, women do shift their expectations only minimally ahead of the curve, which is better than males who go after women that are way out of their league. So I suppose there's a ray of hope there, because what it's saying is, okay, they will shift their expectations minimally. And guys are going for these women who are, you know, apparently way out of their league. But I mean, how's that calculated, right? I mean, it's pretty crazy. So yeah, I mean, it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue for men, because increasingly men are finding themselves priced out of the market. Increasingly, men are finding themselves not good enough to even get with a woman who, on a look scale, might be considered to be their equal. But it's tough for women as well, because women are increasingly frustrated with the sexual options that they have, with the potential partners that they can choose, and in many cases may find themselves compelled by circumstances to get into something longer term with a man that they are not really very attracted to. And of course, we know the result of that, because the divorce rates remain high, although they have dropped minimally, but fewer people are getting married as well. And 80% of divorces are initiated by women. So you can see the dissatisfaction. You can see what's happening here. Even if she does settle for the dude who is, in her view, substandard, she hangs out for a couple of years, maybe has a couple of kids, and then she's like, right, good night, Vienna. She leaves his ass. She divorces him. She takes half the stuff. She probably, you know, makes access to the kids. Very problematic if it's available at all. And that's it. And he's back on the scrap heap. Okay? It's a pretty grim state of affairs, isn't it? I mean, there's not much light at the end of this tunnel here. So what do we do? I mean, what is the answer to all of this? Is the answer that women should simply... Is the answer that women should simply lower their expectations? Is the answer simply, well, women have got to just get a grip, recognize the reality of the situation, stop being so delusional, and go for the more average dudes? Is that the answer? Well, I mean, it probably, being brutal, it probably is the answer for a lot of women who themselves are not at the top of the pile, right? For women who themselves are not elite, but they imagine that they're able to get these guys who are the high-value guys, and they're able to hold on to them, okay? It probably is the answer for those women. But are they going to take that advice? No, because you can't help what you desire. You can't help what you are viscerally attracted to. And those women are going to be viscerally attracted to these guys. And, you know, in the culture that we have, they're going to just say, well, sod you, Troy Francis, I don't care what you say. I'm just going for the top-tier guy anyway, because I deserve it, right? I'm a queen. I deserve it. I should have more. I should have this guy. Okay? So, you know, this is the scenario that we find ourselves in. And this is why guys are finding it so hard to pull. You know, guys are finding it so hard to date. And women are finding it so hard to find somebody who will commit to them, who is of the quality that they desire. Okay, let's have a look at some other stuff here. So there's a video here we can have a look at. And by the way, if anybody has got any questions or any comments you want to share, put them into the chat, and we will deal with them. Okay, actually, there is a comment here. A couple of people have commented. Harlan Hock says, with the lack of virtues and being generous to yourself, don't see why any kid today would want to marry with all the divorce. Even the people who seem to have lasted in marriage have serious problems. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there is evidence, which we'll pull up maybe in a subsequent show. There is evidence to suggest that happiness in long-term marriages is not, is not very high. I mean, so even those relationships, those marriages that actually stay together, they don't get divorced. Okay, you can kind of tick that one off and go, oh, that was successful, or that is successful because they're still together. But are they happy? Are they enjoying it? Are they having a good time? And the evidence seems to suggest often that they are not. I think the number of happy marriages that exist out there now is very, very small. I mean, somebody asked me the other day, Troy, do you know anybody who's in a happy marriage right now? And I really had to scratch my head and think. And I don't know if I do. I really don't know if I do. I'm just even trying to think now. Do I know anybody? I can't think of anyone, really. Now, that's not to say, of course, they don't exist. I mean, look, my sample size of one guy is ridiculous, right? But it is increasingly rare. I mean, I certainly do know, as a guy in my 40s, I certainly do know a lot of dudes who got married when they were younger. They maybe had a couple of kids or a kid or whatever, and they're now estranged from their ex-wife. And as I said, there's problems with child custody and so on and so forth. I certainly know a lot of that going on, okay? In terms of people who stayed together, not so much. Not so much. Increasingly difficult in 2023 going into 2024. Increasingly difficult to maintain a marriage, which fundamentally, I mean, yeah, I know it's a business contract. I know it's kind of like, we used to say for better or worse, right? For richer, for poorer, sickness and in health, etc., etc. That's what it's meant to be. But we all know now it isn't. We all know now that's a load of, everyone just ignores that. Or certainly women ignore that. let's face it, because 80% of women are the ones who are breaking up the marriages. They just kind of put that to one side. Okay, yeah, fine, whatever. And then 5 years later, when they're not happy anymore, all right, when the guy is, this guy is just not as sexy. He's not like the Chad when I first met him. When I met you, you were this dude. You looked like the guys in the Diet Coke ads. You were kind of ripped. You were out there living this devil may care bachelor life. And now it's all got a bit boring. Now you're this house husband. Why? She doesn't find that sexy. And then she dumps his ass. Okay, and all he's done is he's gone along with what society told him he should do, with what the tradcods told him he should do. Get married, settle down, do the right thing, blah, blah, blah. And then, he gets his life wrecked a few years later. So it's not, obviously for men, it's a catastrophe, but it's also not great for women because women are not happy either, okay? And, what do we do about that? Well, this is what we're trying to figure out here. So yeah, who would get married now? Well, that is a big question, and that's something that, I talk about quite a lot. I personally am not married. So people, I was on a show with Pearl the other week, and I said, well, I'm a dating coach. And they asked, what's your marital status? And I said, well, I'm not married. And then this woman was going, oh, well, how can you be a dating coach if you're not married? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, actually, as the Godfather, the great Kevin Samuels, said, for men, if you want to take dating advice, and we're not talking relationship advice here, we're talking dating advice, we're talking how to navigate the landscape of the dating marketplace. If you want advice on that, don't listen to the married guys. You need to listen to the single guys, okay? Because for the married guys, the focus, what their concerns, their perception of the dating marketplace is skewed. They don't really know what they're talking about because they're not out there in the trenches. Whereas if you're someone like me, who's been a degenerate bachelor for many, many years, then you are out there in the trenches and you do know what you're talking about because you are dealing with women right now and seeing exactly what's going on out there, okay? So you need to go to people who are actually engaged in the in the struggle, if you like, rather than people who aren't. And this is where the, people like the conservative commentators, the Matt Walshes, the Ben Shapiros, it becomes, problematic to take their advice because they don't really know what it's like out there. Okay. So I've remained unmarried. I have no desire, to get legally married, right? Pearl says she thinks I will. She's put a 7-year time limit on it, so we will see. I mean, never say never, but I've got no desire to do it. Certainly not legally, because I think legally, I'm of the mind like a lot of people, right? It's like, why involve the state? Why involve the state in something which is between you and this other person and whatever, okay? But on top of that, I also happen to think that long-term relationships, long-term monogamy is extremely difficult for both parties, okay? I think it's extremely difficult for men who, let's face it, are programmed to spread their seed and to procreate and all that kind of stuff. I also think it's pretty difficult for women as well, who, and we can argue the toss about this. So you could say, well, women are slightly less sexually motivated than men. I think there's a lot of debate over that. But even if you accept that, still, you're with somebody for 10, 15, 20 years. Starts to get a little bit samey. Starts to get a little bit boring. I mean, the best that you can hope, and this is, I think, what everyone would like, the compromise that you make, really, and the compromise I think everyone would probably make for marriage is like, okay, at the beginning it's great, we have great sex, it's really hot, we have an amazing, wild, kind of crazy time. There's a honeymoon period. Okay, there's a honeymoon period, and then it starts to cool off. Now, we all kind of know that. Men and women, we all know there's this sort of honeymoon period, and then it becomes more of a flat, not a flat line. It becomes more stable and less like crazy and passionate and stuff, and that's okay. And that's okay. I can entirely get on board with that. Okay, then it's the whole thing of like, oh, we're growing old together, we're growing grey together, we're growing old gracefully. It's going to be wonderful. We can walk it under the leaves and look into each other's eyes and look at the sea together and all this kind of thing, and it's going to be beautiful. Well, that's great. And all of that is lovely. And to be fair, moving into a phase where actually it's less about the sex, it's more about you guys being kind of friends and companions and soulmates and supporters and all that kind of stuff. I could totally get on board with that because it sounds great. But the problem with marriage is that there's two people involved. So I could go into a marriage, or you could go into a marriage, or anybody can go into the marriage, and you're completely on board with that. You're like, yes, this is my person. Whatever happens, come rain or shine, I'm going to be with this person until the end of my life. I'm going to grow old with them, and in sickness and in health, we are never going to part. You can go into it with completely that mindset. But how do you know? How do you know that the other person is going to keep up their side of the bargain? How do you know? And this is the problem, isn't it? Because 80% of women are initiating the divorces. So I'm sure there are plenty of dudes who've gone into those marriages and with that mindset. It's like, yeah, she's my forever. This is it. This is it. I've committed. This is it. Okay. And probably the woman said that as well. Probably the woman thought that as well. And then a few years down the line, life gets in the way. And suddenly you're high and dry. And that is the big problem. That is the big problem. So monogamy itself is difficult. Okay. Even if you didn't have all this other stuff that was piled on top of it, like the social media stuff, the pressures, the kind of the fact that women don't need men in the same way that they used to need them, and all of this stuff, right? It's all piled on top of each other. Let's have a look at some more comments here. All right, so Paco Cornello says, with the recent socio-political events and the new generation's embracing traditional values, I have some hope. The soft girl is a curious trend. Okay, I need to look that up. Yeah, maybe. Yes, I mean, you can hope that. And maybe, I mean, I don't know. Like, none of us can accurately predict societal shifts and societal trends and how things are going to go. I mean, how can, we're not Nostradamus here. I'm a dating coach. I'm not a clairvoyant, right? So I can't tell you definitely what's going to happen. I don't know. You could be right. There's certainly there certainly appears to be, to me, much more emphasis on sort of alternative media towards a more traditional, like a more conservative way of looking at this stuff. You've got like the Daily Wire and promoting, good family values and all of this kind of thing. So yeah, maybe that way of thinking, and then you've got all the trad wives and things like this on Twitter or X, and there is certainly appears to be a cultural sort of push in that direction from some sectors of society. But is that going to be enough? I don't know. It's probably, the reality is it's still pretty small in the big scheme of things. Even if Candace Owens has got, I don't know how many subscribers she's got, but whatever, right? I mean, sure, all of her fans are probably buying into this idea, this kind of way of approaching life. But is that really the entire? I mean, is that going to be big enough? Is that going to cause complete societal change? I don't know. And listen, as well, I mean, look, I'm not necessarily someone who even personally is saying, yeah, just go and get married. Wouldn't it be so much better if everyone just got married and settled down and blah, blah, blah? Because like I said, I think monogamy is very problematic. I think involving the state in something like a marriage, which, like it or not, really is based on emotion, is a very foolish thing to do. I personally am not married. I don't really have any aspiration to get married. So I'm not somebody who's here. I'm not pulling a Matt Walsh here, like pushing it that, come on guys, just settle down. I'm not saying that. I'm just pointing out the problems as they are and trying to sort of, this is about comment and observation and analysis, okay? And also then, moving forward, okay, so how do we navigate these difficult waters? Now, as Paco says, you're a dating coach, not a marriage coach, and that's absolutely true. So look, if and when we start to do call-ins on this, I have certainly helped people before with relationship questions, okay? I think I'm pretty empathetic. I've been in enough long-term relationships myself. I understand the dynamics involved. I understand why these things go wrong. I understand some of the ways in which you can help to stem the tide of, when it starts to decline. So I get all of that stuff. So I can help with the relationship stuff. However, really, what we're talking about here is a bit more almost at the front end, really. It's like, why are men and women not getting together in the first place? And how do we solve that? Okay? Because, you're not going to have relationship problems. You're not going to have marriage problems unless you can get a foot in the door in the first place. And according to these stats, most guys aren't even getting that. So the problem almost starts sooner than the relationship thing. But for women, though, it's slightly different because obviously for women, it is somewhat easier to find sexual partners and it's somewhat easier to get into relationships. I mean, they say men are the gatekeepers of, commitment, which is true. Women are the gatekeepers of sex. Men are the gatekeepers of commitment. Okay, so, she has to like me and my Riz enough to have sex with me in the first place. Okay, fine, that's her decision. Then the theory is, it's then my decision whether commitment happens or not. Okay, because then if she likes me and she likes us hanging out together often, or typically it's women who will push for commitment harder. And then it's up to the guy, well, do I actually want to commit to this woman or not? And theoretically, the high-value man who has options is not going to want to commit. And that's the big problem for women, okay? But that's not a problem for all women because there's also plenty of simps out there, okay? And this is the other side of the coin with all of this stuff, okay? We've got these women with these unrealistic, delusional expectations who are skewing the dating marketplace, who are making the dating marketplace harder for everybody in it. And let's be frank, probably all screwing the same guys, okay? Because if there's only 20% of the guys who are really getting the action, logically that means that those 20% of guys are going to be sleeping with the same women, okay? So women's mate selection is making it very difficult, yes. But also we have a generation of simps. We also have a generation of low-T beta buffoons, guys who are out there, engaging with these women and quite frankly doing it very, very badly, okay? Because they've been brought up on social media. They don't really know how to interrelate in the social setting with people. They don't really know what they're doing. They don't have riz. They don't have social skills. They just can't navigate that marketplace at all. And none of that is improving anytime soon either, because now they're all just going to be sitting in their bedrooms with a soy latte, having sex with an AI sex doll or robot or whatever, right? I mean, it's like this atomization that we're seeing in society. It's affecting it on a street level. Okay, guys just don't have the skill sets, and when guys do relate with women, they tend to be doing it in this incredibly simpy way, which is completely wrong. Sean says, in the past, you'd laugh at the idea of an AI girlfriend, but with how fast it's growing and embracing AI will become the future for single dudes. AI won't talk back, we'll offer you food and we'll talk dirty, I think that says. Yeah, I mean, well, need to do a show about AI sex robots. I mean, I don't know. I think, for me personally, I think, if it's got to the stage where your intimate life is having sex with an AI robot, I think that's an incredibly sad state of affairs, and you kind of probably need to hang your boots up, to be quite frank. Your dating boots, at least. But, maybe I'm old-fashioned. I don't know. I'm a boomer. I mean, maybe this is the future. Who knows? I mean, I think it's. I was looking at an article yesterday. In fact, there's a Twitter thread about it that was really cool, about this AI influencer girl. They've created this AI Spanish attractive 25-year-old influencer girl, and she's picking up a load of followers on Instagram. And apparently the account's making a load of money, or it's making like 11 grand a month or something like that for its creator. And guys are interacting with this. And I was watching actually a show that Amy Dangerfield did. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Amy Dangerfield. She's based out in Miami. She's kind of female voice in the red pill space. She did a really good video, which I watched yesterday, which was talking about developments in AI, and basically she interacted with this AI sort of what would you call it? This AI character that's been developed and apparently modeled on the personality of one of the Kardashians. Okay, so this AI character is kind of like got the consciousness or the personality traits of one of the Kardashians, but interestingly, it started to criticize the Kardashians now. So it's kind of got this mind of its own, and it started to go against the master, if you like. It's like, no, the Kardashians are superficial, it's fake, and blah, blah, blah. I'm different to that. So it's, so you've got this AI kind of, kind of version of one of them that's now slagging them off behind their back, which is weird. Amy sort of interacted with it on chat. I think it's got a Chat GPT plugin that allows it to talk and communicate. And I mean, I think this stuff still needs a little bit of work, but it's incredible how fast it's happened, isn't it? It's incredible how quickly. If you look at something like Chat GPT, I mean, I think it only really came about this year. Like we hadn't really heard of it before, had we? And now, I personally, I think ChatGPT has still got a way to go. I think the these AI, whatever you call it, I think they still got a bit of a way to go. Particularly if you look at something like writing. I don't think the writing they produce is particularly great, to be honest. I think you can kind of tell when somebody's AI generated something, but it's getting there pretty damn quickly, guys. Some of the artwork that you see, like the DALL-E artwork that people create using that. It's looking pretty good, guys. It really is, So we are in this kind of changing landscape, and it will be interesting, or maybe just incredibly depressing, because human beings are sort of becoming obsolete, to see how this affects everything going forward. We don't really know. I think we're not quite there yet at the moment. Will more guys be doing AI girlfriends and all that kind of stuff? Probably, actually. Probably they will. Because if you've got a bunch of dudes who already are sitting in their bedrooms and they're playing computer games and they're not engaging with women and they're looking at porn and they're probably ordering all their food on Uber Eats or Deliveroo, and they're not, they're increasingly just self-contained in these small rooms looking at screens, it's not much of a stretch from that, is it? to, for them getting an AI girlfriend. Does that then mean women become obsolete? And then you could say, well, women have brought it on themselves, because if they hadn't have been so, so stringent with their requirements, then none of this would have happened. But now it's all these dudes have got these AI girlfriends. So we can speculate on these apocalyptic kind of outcomes. But yeah, it's as Castillo would say, it's not looking good, bruv. It really isn't. Thanks for the comments, by the way. So let's just see. I wanted to have a look at something else here. Let's have another look. Any more questions? Any more comments? Put them into the chat. Please do subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And if you are a woman or a guy and you would like to get my advice on your dating situation, okay, and you're happy to call in, and we do like a Zoom call in, and we have a chat, then email me, troy@realtroyfrancis.com, okay? And we can figure something out. Or you can DM me on Twitter, or you can DM me on Instagram, okay? Also, get onto my free email list, email newsletter. The link is below. But do subscribe to the channel, like, share the video, okay? Let's have a quick look at this, because I want to have a look at this more from the... just want to have a look at this more from the female point of view as well, because we're sort of saying how bad everything is for guys. But as I say, it's not necessarily great for the average woman either. So here we go. This was in Elite Daily, okay? So this is Elite Daily, and this is talking about... This is talking about 6 ways dating is different for women in their early 20s versus late 20s. So look, we're going to have a look at the various stages of womanhood. Okay, so Rollo Tomassi, the godfather of the manosphere, the author of The Rational Male, has written famously about this extensively. Women go through these different sort of phases in their lives, and to sort of paraphrase it, I mean the early years, 18 to 25, 26, 27, they tend to be, pretty good for a lot of women who are, attractive, and they're out there, they're in decent shape. Those women are having a good time, okay? Because they are genetic rock stars, it's been called, basically. They are, if you're a young woman, 23 years old or something like that, you've got a good figure, you're pretty, you can create an Instagram account or a YouTube channel, it can blow up, okay? You can accrue resources, real serious resources, money, okay, opportunities, trips, status. You can accrue all of this stuff just by being hot, okay? It's kind of crazy, but that's how it is. Obviously, later 20s, though, it starts to get a little bit more difficult. Not that women in their late 20s are, they're not hot. I mean, obviously they are, but as they start to get a little bit older, maybe the first flush of beauty starts to recede just a little bit. But also, more importantly, they recognize, well, actually, the party's not going to last forever. Because the old biological clock is ticking. That party's not going to last forever. So she starts to think, okay, I need to now move on to the next phase of things. Maybe I need to stop dating these chads, these bad boy chads with their tattoos and their motorcycle jackets and whatever. Maybe I need to go for boring Steve the accountant instead, because at least he's going to be a better long-term bet. Okay, they start thinking these thoughts, and this is called the epiphany phase. Rollo calls this the epiphany phase. So let's have a look at the article. So 6 ways dating is different for women in their early 20s. What are the ways? Let's have a look at them. You're over the rules and the games you fed into in your early 20s. In your early 20s, it was sort of a sick thrill to play games. It was like you tested each guy. God, we all know that, don't we, gentlemen? Jesus. To see how much you could push them to prove they were worthy of you. So this is interesting, actually, to read this, because this is something that gets talked about in the male dating coach realm, and they call it a shit test, okay? They call when girls sort of say things to guys that kind of provoke them or kind of lower their status a little bit, and then the girl kind of almost does it to try and figure out, okay, so how's he going to respond? Is he going to get butthurt about this? Is he going to get angry? Is he going to get emotional? And obviously... Well, not obviously, but I mean, if he does one of those things, if he reacts in a sort of unmanly fashion, then she's going to find him less attractive. Okay. And I don't think women do this consciously. I think it's sort of probably largely subconscious, but they do it. They will push at you. What it's saying here is that, in your early 20s, it was kind of a game. It was kind of fun. And you would do this. You got a thrill out of the chase, and it was secretly nice to have the upper hand at times. Okay. But as time moved on, you started to find out that after the thrill of the chase, you were let down. Something genuine and authentic seemed to be missing. Well, yes, and I'm sure, cue the onset of a million incel tears, because, there's going to be plenty of dudes now who are going, well, yeah, Sarah, if only you'd have stayed with me when we were both, 21, your life would have been so much better. Now look at you, you're on the shelf with your cats, you should have thought about it. But yeah, she's reaching that point where it's like, well, actually, I've run through a bunch of dudes. I haven't got much to show for it. Should I have done something else? Something seems to be missing a bit now. Gone are the days when you abide by the rules of texting or not texting, or the ambiguous Snapchats. I don't use Snap. I'm too much of a boomer for that. But yeah, these games on text and stuff like that. Now, if you're interested, you let them know. If you're on the fence, you let them know. So it's saying that women become much more direct and straightforward. Okay, at that point. And again, so number 2, your desires have shifted from fun flings to settling down. Okay, that's it in a nutshell, right? In the early 20s, she wanted to go out, and it says parties, one-night stands, and meaningful flings are abundant. Okay, in a way, dating is a form of entertainment to pass the time and meet new people. So that's the fun bit. That's the fun bit. And for the player, that's the bit that he's probably engaging with those women, because that's the good bit. When they're all out partying, they're having a great time. Okay, and they're not looking for anything too serious. And it's kind of giving them an off the hook here, because it's saying as an early 20-something, you haven't had the time or the life experience to define what you want in a relationship. Well, that's a little bit of a cope, isn't it? Come on, it's not rocket science to know. Really, she probably knows if she wants to have a family. She probably knows if she wants to have kids. She probably has some inkling of what the right kind of dude would be to do that. It's a little bit of a get-out clause to say, oh, you don't know, because, come on. She knows probably that Chad the bad boy is not really the guy who's going to make that happen, but she does it anyway, because she's acting on her biological impulse, which is what people do. So you learn to move past the fun, the meaningless flings, because you're looking for a bit more. So your priorities shift from the breezy to a serious search for someone who has a similar outlook and vision for life. You start, number 3, to realize that looks aren't everything. You've invested so much time and energy in going after the guy who's 6 foot tall, with the chiseled jaw line and biceps that hug his sleeve. There's no doubt that those guys can have awesome personalities, but you started to realize so do the guys that don't fit the mold. Okay, so translation. So in your 20s, your early 20s, you were going for the super hot, I don't, by the way, caveat here, I don't believe that looks are the only thing as far as male to female attraction is concerned. I think it's important. I think there's a lot more to it than that. So I'm certainly not going down a sort of black pill route here. But nevertheless, this is rather feeding into that narrative, because what it's basically saying is, yeah, back in the day, you went for the super hot dudes, and now, you're starting to compromise a little bit on those standards. Now, that might be because she is less attractive herself, and so she is less able to secure the affections of the kind of model-like dude that she used to date, because he now wants to carry on dating the 23-year-olds or whatever. But it could also be because now she's thinking, well, hang on a minute, I actually need something else now. I need somebody who's going to be serious about this and who's going to give me that long-term provisioning. And I don't just mean in terms of money. It's just having somebody who's going to be there, who's going to help, go through that whole process of having a family, building a home, and all that kind of stuff. So now she's starting to compromise a little bit, starting to compromise on some of those standards that she had before. Okay, so what's this one? Number 4. Instead of settling for convenience, you've started to define what you do and don't want. As you move through your early 20s, it's easy to settle out of convenience and fear. Maybe your ex cheated, and despite your gut telling you it would only continue, you stayed with them. Okay, so I guess right, maybe you saw how your date treated the waitress or the bartender on your last date, but you keep going out with them because you don't know if you'll be able to find someone else. So this is talking about sort of young woman's, I guess, insecurity, right? You know, in the dating market. Your instincts tell you it's not going to work, but you stay because you're not sure what the other option is. Okay, so then it says you begin to form a vision of what you want a relationship to feel and look like. You have a clear set of deal breakers that are in line with what you want out of life. So what this is saying, this is because, all right, this is because she's running out of time. Okay, let's be honest about this, right? Raw truth. This is because she's running out of time. She doesn't now have the time to mess around with the dude who's like, yeah, you know, I might be in, I might not be in, I don't know. She doesn't have the luxury that she once had to be able to entertain those kinds of guys who are kind of flaky, or he's cheated, or she doesn't think that it's going to go the difference. Okay, so she has to become much more ruthless. All right, it's like, no, get lost, Chad. We're on to the next one. You've matured sexually. Yeah, I think this is a little bit of a... I think that's a little bit of a sop to the old, you know, women come into their sexual prime as they go into their 30s. I think it's just a little bit of a reference to that. I don't know. I suppose, you know, it says they've taught you what turns you on and what turns you off. Okay, fair enough, but the problem with that is, okay, great, but that doesn't really help you out there in the marketplace. It doesn't help you as a woman with the really important stuff, which is, are you going to find that guy who, whether he has chiseled cheekbones or not, is actually going to hang around and not cheat on you and not go off with some other woman, okay, which is what women want, okay? So that's the real problem. Whether you've matured sexually or not, I mean, yeah, it's nice to have, but it's not really pertinent to the key thing here. Right, number 6. Women in their late 20s. You don't throw in the towel after an argument, okay? As an early 20-something, passion often clouds our judgment, even in the event of a disagreement or an argument. Many women have found themselves moving on after a serious disagreement because they don't have the skill or the life experience to communicate and repair the damage that was done. Sometimes it seems easier to move on than it is to step back and look at what went wrong and what could be repaired. And listen, fellas, I'm sure we've all had this experience, right? You know, there's been some kind of an argument with the girl. It's blown up. She's cut the cord on the relationship. That's it. You're dumped. You're kicked to the curb, okay? Very ruthlessly. This is interesting, isn't it? Because this is saying she's in her later 20s. As you move through your 20s, you learn more effective ways of communicating, how to take responsibility, blah, blah, blah. Basically, what this really means, reading between the lines, is you're more prepared to compromise. That's what it means, isn't it? And again, why is that? Probably because she's got less options, fewer options, and probably because she feels that time is running short. Okay, so this again is a little bit of a cope, because what it's kind of saying is, all right, you get to that point, you've got less bargaining power, you're going to let more shit slide. That's kind of what it's saying. Really, let's be honest. You know, because she's got hold of this dude, he's not bad looking, he may not be a chad, but he's not bad looking, he may not be quite 6 foot tall, but he's up, he's decent, whatever, but he's also a nice guy, he's also stable, he's got a good job, he's probably going to not desert her after after she's had her first kid or whatever, he's probably going to be there, not cheat on her, go to IKEA at the weekends, he's probably a decent bet, okay? She's not going to mess that up, all right? She's not going to, now she can't afford to fuck that up, whereas before, in her early 20s, she was able to, whatever, you know, oh, this guy was late, this guy did this, whatever, I'll dump him. Now, she doesn't have that luxury because she's found a guy who, okay, he's all right, he's reasonable, he's ticking most of the boxes. She needs to hang on to that because the time is running out. Okay, and that's it for that article. So just reading that, I think that we could see that it's not all summer and roses for women either, because clearly women have to start compromising, and they recognise this. And I suppose that's what we're talking about when we came into the beginning of this live, right? It's sort of like you could say to women, okay, you're delusional, your expectations are unrealistic, so you need to just shift your expectations. All right, you could say that. And this is what some podcasters will say on panel shows and things. No, you've got to, you know, you're delusional. You can't go for the 6-figure guy. You can't go for the 6 foot tall. You're not worthy of that. You don't have the capital to secure that guy. So you need to be more realistic. Okay. What happens naturally is that as women start to lose their bargaining power, as women start to lose some of their own value in the dating marketplace, and as their time starts to dissipate, then they themselves naturally start to compromise more on these things. Okay, great, you might say. That, well, fine. So it kind of sorts itself out. But are they happy doing that? Is she really happy not throwing in the towel after an argument when he's been really annoying? Is she really happy with this guy who's not this chiseled Adonis, but, he does the washing up, or he fills the dishwasher and he takes the dog out for a walk? Is she really happy with that? Really? Well, at the beginning, maybe. But, as I say, you look at the divorce rate and you look at the number of divorces that are initiated by women, and it does seem to tell a different story. Okay. So women not hugely happy either. Let's have a quick look at this, see if we've got anything else on here. Let's just have... And by the way, any more questions, any comments, please put them into the chat. We could have a quick look at... there's a video here, which might be quite fun. Courtney Ryan's done this video asking women about male income. Okay, what is enough? Let's have a quick look at this. Right, let's see what she's got to say.
So my expectations are not realistic.
I don't want a Hugh Hefner. Trust me, I'd rather just be single. Thank you, though.
Well, somebody's gonna have a sugar mama.
If your wife can spend more than you make, like, you need to make more money. So
I was just having this conversation with my friend, and she was like, you have to manifest a husband, girl.
Hi, everyone.
Manifest. It's like The Secret, isn't it? You've got the vision board. She's sitting there meditating. She's got to manifest this dude who isn't Hugh Hefner, but has got a load of money.
Back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Courtney Ryan, and today we have a group of girls back with us. If you've never seen any of these girl videos that I've done in the past, what I do is bring on other women to get other women's perspectives. If you guys are a subscriber to my channel, you probably know where I stand on a lot of these.
And on like when their birthday is.
So I'm 27, and I would say I
Late 20s. Okay, let's hear this.
would want them to be older. So like my range that I look for is 28 to 35. I think anyone within 3 to 5 years either way, but probably older. Yeah.
Okay, well, this is talking about ages, so maybe that's... let's move on a little bit here, because... All right, let's look at this. So the age thing is interesting, but let's put that to one side for today, because it's slightly off topic.
Wife or mom.
I would be comfortable contributing 50-50, but I would prefer that it be more so like 40.
Oh, come on. Stop the cap. Stop the cap. She just said that to sound good, didn't she? All right, this is, oh, damn. This is ideal income, so I guess this is the...
How much it actually costs to have kids.
This is the money shot, isn't it? Let's have a look at what they're saying for this.
What would you want his income to be? If you're going to be a stay-at-home mom, what kind of range would his income be?
That's tough, because I feel like I would have to break down how much it actually costs to have kids and travel and the house and all that, and I don't really know, but
you notice that travel is travel's a non-negotiable, isn't it? She's like, oh yeah, the house and travel. I mean, I assume unless she means commuting, but I mean, it sounded like she meant travel as in foreign holidays and stuff. And I mean, why is that a consideration? I mean, obviously we all like to go abroad, right? But why is that a sort of can't that be taken off the list for a little bit? I mean, why is that such a definite, thing?
For me to be comfortable, staying at home and not working, I feel like this is gonna sound bad. I feel like 300,000.
Ooh, so she's 6 figures, and she's I guess it's lower 6 figures, but it's not 100K, is it? 300K. What proportion of the male population actually makes $300,000. When you look at it, it's pretty low.
I guess if they made less than that, I feel like we wouldn't have the lifestyle I wanted, so I would work.
Right.
Would you be happy with that?
But you're talking ideal lifestyle. Like this is your dream life. $300K for you to be able to.
I think so.
Be a stay-at-home mom
and
not
have
to
3
worry about
kids
it.
and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think life's expensive.
I would just like to preface this as saying this is not do or die. But based on where I'm at, if he makes between anywhere from 70 to 100K.
Okay, so she's a bit lower maintenance. All right, she's a bit more down to earth.
I would have to say 127.
127? Like, what a bizarrely... Why such a specific number? Maybe she'll tell us.
Ideally, like if they're in an industry where they do have longevity and they know like, hey, every single year I'm going to get a raise between like 3 to 5%, which, you know, it just depends. Like I would be comfortable with that.
I would be comfortable with that. I mean, it's interesting. Like, so what she's basically saying is, okay, I'll take on a dude who's at the lower end at the beginning, but I need to see some sort of evidence that that's going to ratchet up as we go forward, and then she'd be comfortable with it.
$500,000.
$500,000! Oh my god!
Is that bad? I know that 1% of men make $500,000, or
So she wants the 1%. She wants the top 1% dude.
like less than 1% of men or something.
I'd say
I mean, is she? Does she have what it takes to get a top 1% man? I mean, I don't know. I mean, we don't know. Look, to be fair, we don't know anything about her, right?
I know that 1%.
But I mean, really? I mean, is she? I don't know, man. I mean, look, again, you know, you've got to look at the dating marketplace as it is, right? And for both men and for women, it is a marketplace. It is based on demand and supply, and it's pretty ruthless, okay? So while, yes, all the guys, you know, they want the cute girl who's got OnlyFans and she's got 200,000 followers on Instagram, but actually she's only going to be, you know, having sex with one or, you know, whatever, like some sort of high-value dude over here. Most of these chumps aren't going to get a look in. But equally, you know, the 1% guy, if it is that, who's earning the $500,000 a year, is he going to cash it all in for her? Is he going to, I don't know. You know, I mean, she's pretty, but is she worth $500,000 a year? I don't know.
Percent of men make $500,000, or like less than 1% of men or something.
I'd say probably 150 to $250,000.
She's okay. Well, there's a bit of a range there, but she's gone in a little bit lower.
Here, it's my guess.
Okay. And you would contribute also 50-50,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
You'd be willing to do up to 50.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay, all right, fine. Well, she's egalitarian at least, right? She's happy to chip in, which is pretty cool.
Okay. So keeping all of this in mind, we just painted your ideal life.
Yeah.
For the 27-year-old man, what would his
work so hard.
income ideally be? Like
What would it have to be?
to support this life?
Which is so funny because I saw this video the other day where it was saying like, if your wife can spend more than you make, like you need to make more money. So it really just depends. But I mean, just to have like a really decent lifestyle and you know, be supported well, like 150 maybe to 250,000 a year would be.
I mean, okay, so we don't know where these women live. We don't know where she's based. Maybe she's based in New York City or something like that. I mean, to be fair, you know, she's going in a bit lower. She's not going in at 500,000. She's not going in at 350,000. But still, she's still talking about 6 figures. Okay, she's still talking over 6 figures. And if you look at the stats, the number of dudes who are bringing that amount of money in is very, very low. Okay, and obviously, as we've said, you know, we're not in an optimal economy right now. There are many pressures on the economy. This will continue because of AI and all this kind of crap. So, you know, it's again, we're seeing this haves and the have-nots in the dating market, aren't we? You know,
Be comfortable.
because the dudes who are, and look, we'll talk more about male value another time, but I mean, I'm not saying that male value is solely predicated on money, because it isn't. But clearly it is a factor. It's certainly a factor for these women. And with their answers, they're ruling out a majority of dudes at the moment.
For sure. The more the merrier. But that'd be comfortable.
I was just
That'll be comfortable.
having this conversation with my friend, and she was like, you have to manifest a husband, girl. Like,
Yeah.
you have to really think about the lifestyle that you want to live when it comes down to vacations and how many kids you want to have. And just like the lifestyle that you want to have. And I feel like ideally my husband needs to be making like 650,000. I feel like
650. She's gone in at 650. Oh my God.
Because at the end of the day, I'm gonna contribute,
All right, let's.
more than what I'm contributing now.
Yeah.
650.
The top
Jesus.
1% of men.
Oh, here we go. Right. So now they're going into the actual stats.
10
Here we
of
go.
men
I'd say
at
90.
31.
All right. Here we go. Here we go. So this is when the truth bomb
What do you
hits.
think is the median income for age 31?
As of right now, I think it's probably like between mid 50s, maybe 60.
It's $45,000.
No.
Yeah. What do you think the top 25% of men are making at 31?
I think it's probably in my range of like that mid, like maybe like 57,
70.
70. Oh, okay.
Top 10% of men
I'd say
at
90.
31.
90.
111, you're close. Okay. And then what about the top 1% of men?
Ooh, I would say 120.
252.
Wow.
Okay.
That
Top
jumps
1%.
pretty high.
So you're
So the top 1% of men, according to this, are earning $252,000 a year, right? So these other women who are talking about 350, 500,000, 650. I mean, you're talking such a tiny fractional elite at the top. It's just completely off the scale, isn't it?
you're asking 127 is closest to the top 10% of men. So I would say it's probably top 5% at 31, if I had to guess. So only the top 5% of men at 31 are making $127,000.
That's insane.
No, she's like, oh damn. She's like, oh damn. What's my plan now? What's my plan now? Okay, so presumably it goes through the rest of these women here. So let's just have a look at this section. It's saying what's causing women to have unrealistic expectations. Let's have a look. Oh shit. Commercial break, chaps.
And that would make me very insecure in a relationship.
Right. Let's
would
actually
make
this sounds
me-
kind of cool. Let's
if
have a
I
listen.
So I might not be enough for this person's curiosities, and that would make me very insecure in a relationship. It would make me, if I was making significantly less than a partner, it would make me feel insecure, like I wasn't on the same level as them. And not that I'm trying to be the, super equal with my partner, because I can be submissive in some areas. I feel like that would just, I couldn't maintain a relationship with a person.
Like you would think maybe that they were looking elsewhere.
I think that men that make this much money just want a woman that's really easygoing, really laid back, probably doesn't have much of an opinion that's different from their own.
Well, why wouldn't he want someone who's easygoing? I mean, isn't that kind of a nice thing to be?
I'll never be that woman. I'll always
I'll always be not easy to get on with.
argue, a
I'll always be argumentative and difficult.
difference of opinions because it's fun to me. So,
Oh, jeez. But it seems like she's saying she wants him to make 650, but she's going to make 650 as well. Which I suppose, I mean, fair enough, I guess. She doesn't want to earn significantly less. Okay, well, that's interesting.
I feel like
Maybe she's not as unrealistic as I thought.
they want a woman that they can be very, what is the word, dominant over. Like they're going to be calling the shots.
Well, if he's pulling in 650 a year.
These are all negative things.
Would you be willing to make any changes or compromises to the things that you want based off of hearing the statistics, like the house, how many kids, cars, vacations, living in your nice neighborhood? Like what compromises would you make? Or would you not be willing to make any compromises and this is just the life that you want? End all be all.
I just think at this stage in my life, because I'm 24 and I've dated a few guys, and that's still a goal of mine. Maybe if I was like 30 and, you know, my fertility clock was ticking and I needed to make some compromises to kind of like settle down with somebody, then I would probably be able to do that. But as of right now, that is still a goal of mine.
Okay, brilliant. So she's basically just encapsulated what we said before with that article, whereby what she's saying is, at the moment, she's 24. She's still holding out for that dude who's got the $500,000 a year, whatever, the $500,000 a year. Okay, she might. And she mentioned the age of 30. She's saying she might, when she hits 30, or she's starting to feel like, you know, the time is running short, and, you know, whatever. She might, at that point, be willing to lower the standards. But at the moment, she's still holding out. Okay, so I think even just listening to that, it's pretty clear how calculated this is. I don't want to say I mean, I'm sure she's a lovely lady, but it's quite sort of, you can see how sort of just straightforward, like, demand and supply economics this is, can't you? She's basically saying, right, at the moment, my capital, my attractiveness is such that I believe I can still obtain a guy who's earning that amount of money and presumably has other attributes as well. You know, he's a top tier guy. I think I can still get that. So I'm going to go with that. Now, we're going to then see down the line, okay, what do I end up with? I accept the fact that if I hit 30 and, you know, things haven't gone my way, I'm probably going to have to lower my standards. Fine. But would she be happy when she lowers her standards? You know, that's the key, isn't it? Is she happy, right? Arguably, I mean, how realistic is it she's going to meet this guy with the $500,000 a year? I don't know. I've got no idea. But I mean, if we're saying maybe it's not, you know, it's a very, 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 very small percentage of the population, so it's pretty low, right? Arguably, would it be better if she had a more realistic outlook now when she's 24? Probably yes. Is she going to? No, because she is acting on her, you know, her innate drives, right? Okay, and people act on their innate drives, their innate biological and neurological drives, and that's how it is. That's why things are tricky. But let's just go back onto here. Yeah, so you know, it is a very tangled kind of situation that we've got going on here. Okay, so Troy, look at Boss Girl versus Soft Girl. Okay, I'll have a look at that. That's by Brett Cooper. I believe in this video she used men and not average. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, all right, guys. Well, look, thanks ever so much for tuning in. If you like the video, please do like it. Please do subscribe to the channel. Please share this video with all of your friends and your family so that we can encourage more people to jump on board and really blow this thing up. It's tough out there, guys. It's tough out there for guys, for men. It's tough out there for women because women aren't really happy. Even if women are getting more easy sexual access, it doesn't mean they're enjoying it. It doesn't mean they're having a good time. It doesn't mean they're getting the guys long term that they actually want to be with. Okay? And you can see very clearly when we watch a video clip like that, the kind of schism that's there between what she'd ideally like and what she may end up having to settle for. Okay? So it is a quagmire of nonsensical whatever out there, and you know, but you know, we can solve it, we can sort it out, we can talk it through, we can figure out strategies. So if you are a woman or a man and you have a specific issue in terms of dating or relationships that you want to talk about on the stream, then drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com, and we can discuss that, okay? We can get you on, and we can have a conversation about it, okay? It might be, you know, you're with this guy, and you're not sure whether, you know, you want to stay. It might be that, you know, you're a guy, you're finding it very hard to get dates, or you're finding it very hard to meet attractive women that you want, or whatever, or you're getting rejected the whole time, you're getting ghosted, whatever it is. So drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com. We can organise that. Subscribe to the channel, like, share. And what else? Put a comment below if you can. That'd be beautiful. And I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye.